Today's episode is about a person for whom we can't do an intro, we won't joke around or take up some of the episode's time. Today's episode is about someone most of you might not have heard of, nor of his greatness. And this episode is more important for your kids than it is for you, so make sure they watch it. I won't take too much of their time or yours. And now, let's get started. So let's go. Usually when I talk to you about a figure, I only do so after having thoroughly researched them, so I can deliver the essence of their lives in just a few short minutes. However, the man I'm going to talk to you about today, almost everything about his life has been erased. Most of the sources I tried to access had their links removed. Someone somewhere doesn't want his story to be known. They want his name forgotten. Each deleted source only made me more determined to bring you his story. So this video could very well be the only source on the internet about this person if it stays up and doesn't get deleted. Samar or Tamar bin Saleh bin Abdullah Al-Suwailem was born in the Arabian Peninsula, specifically in Saudi Arabia in Arar province in the north. He was born on April 14, 1969 to a family with 5 children. Tamar was their youngest child. His father, Saleh Al-Suwailem, may he rest in peace, would always organize competitions for him and his siblings, races, wrestling and mountain climbing, and even offered prizes for the winners. Tamar would sometimes win and sometimes lose. He once asked his father, "Why do you do this?" His father would then tell him about Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, and how he urged the Muslim nation to always prepare itself to face the enemy, even during times of peace. He told him about Umar's heroic deeds, his love for the weak despite his strength, and his support for the oppressed. As time passed, Tamar grew older, and with him his dreams grew too. He aspired to graduate, work for Saudi Aramco, the largest oil company in the Arab world, get married, settle down, build a home, and earn a respectable status among people. But in the background, another dream was also growing alongside, the dream of Umar ibn al-Khattab, his conquests, his honor, and his victories. He thought, I want to be an engineer, have my car, my villa, and my bank account. But at the same time, Umar's dream was overtaking his thinking. What was he supposed to do? So he continued to live as Tamir, the diligent student striving to achieve his dream. Everything was going well, and life was quiet until a big fight broke out in front of his school in 1982, when Tamir was 13 years old. In this fight, one side was the weaker one. A small number of students was facing a large crowd of students who wanted to attack them. At that moment, he set aside his pen and notebook, shedding the persona of young Tamar so that Umar ibn al-Khattab could emerge for the first time. He defended the weaker side without even knowing them. He charged at their enemies to protect them and ward off the attackers. He fought alongside them and was injured during the fight. But he fought with all his strength to the point that this incident completely changed the course of his life. His actions later commanded even more respect and fear among his classmates. The perception of him shifted. No longer was he the weak one. Now even the stronger one sought his help and treated him with great reverence. However, he remained Tamar, the hardworking student. He continued until he attended high school and took the science track and scored 94%. And in 1987, he got the Aramco scholarship that he was targeting and working towards for the past 18 years of his life. Finally, the dream of wealth, comfort, and luxury had arrived. The world welcomed him with open arms. Tamar got his own car, but one day as he was starting it up after work, he heard a disturbing noise coming from the engine. He opened the hood to check, only to find that a cat had been inside the engine bay and had been crushed between the belts. He broke down in bitter tears, crying uncontrollably. Overwhelmed with grief, he lost consciousness. His mental state deteriorated and he collapsed in sorrow over the cat. Tamar, the strict man that everyone respected and feared, collapsed because of the cat's faith. Exactly like Umar, who had once wept for the children of the woman with the famous pot and carried a bag of flour to their house on his shoulders, although he was the emir. Umar, who had cried at the house of the milkwoman despite his strength and sternness, they are merciful among themselves. Tamar in many ways was like Umar. He was a man known for his brave heart in battles, yet the same heart is tender and fragile when faced with a weak, helpless cat. Umar emerged in Tamar's life over and over again. The values his father had instilled in him for years surfaced and took control whether he wanted it or not. Over time, Tamar's persona became little by little more inspired by his role model Umar in everything he did. This was the last picture taken of Tamar in his homeland before embarking on the great journey to the lands of Waqwaq.
And what exactly is this land of Wak Wak, son?
The Far East, uncle, the land of the Afghan. It is the land known as Afghanistan, guys.
Allah, why on earth would he go to the chaos in there, Abuda?
His aspiration to follow his role model took him there. Isam ibn al-Khattab, who grew inside him, incited him to travel the moment he saw jihad rising higher and higher. In 1979, Afghanistan was occupied by the Soviet Union, and then the banner of jihad was raised, calling upon Muslims from all over the world to stop the oppressors.
Of course you mean the banner of terrorism, not jihad. Pay attention, Isam. These people use their words sneakily to spread their ideas.
Oh, sorry, I almost forgot to tell you, it was really called jihad at the time. It was during the Cold War between the USA and the Soviet Union. So when the Soviets entered Afghanistan, the US told our esteemed presidents and leaders to polish the name of jihad, highlight it and promote it in the newspapers to encourage people to go to Afghanistan. Sadat in Egypt called it jihad for the sake of Allah. And King Fahd in Saudi Arabia also called the fighters mujahideen. Not only that, but King Salman, yes, King Salman, the current king of Saudi Arabia, was at that time the governor of Riyadh, my brother, and he was the head of the committee responsible for collecting donations for the mujahideen there. Saudi Airlines even offered discounts for mujahideen traveling to Afghanistan for jihad in the sake of Allah. Anyway, never mind that. The important thing is that you see, Tamer traveled from Riyadh to Afghanistan, my friend. And who do you think he met as soon as he arrived there?
Yeah, who did he meet there?
He met the infamous Sheikh Osama bin Laden, my dearest friend.
Stop right there. May peace and blessings be upon the Prophet. Everything is clear now. Isam, my son, YouTube might flag us as terrorists just for talking about this.
Don't worry, uncle. Just toughen up and listen to me till the end. In 1988, Tamer had completed his 6-month training period and entered the battlefield as a mujahid among the other fighters. This is well before they were later labeled as terrorists. And here's a picture of him in his early days in Jalalabad when his hair had grown a little longer. People asked him, "Wacha, what's your name?" "This is Abu Dujana al-Masri, this is Suhaib al-Iraqi, and this is Abu Malik al-Suri. And you, what's your name?" So they asked him. He replied, "I am Ibn al-Khattab. Call me Ibn al-Khattab." Over time, the name was shortened to just Khattab as it was passed down among the mujahideen. And so Khattab set off from Jalalabad to coast and Kandahar. He was moving like a lion, roaring across Afghanistan. He ignited the enthusiasm of the mujahideen, and their testimony about him was that he had come to die when the battle raged. When we retreated, he did not. His strikes were accompanied by cries of vengeance that he could not understand. Khattab was not only terrifying to the Russians, but he was also inspiring awe among the mujahideen, as if Umar ibn al-Khattab himself had been resurrected. They were fierce against the occupying Russians, yet merciful among themselves. Khattab's screams shook the very foundation of the enemy in battle, yet you could see him weeping like a child a few hours later while carrying his fallen comrade to lay him to rest in the soil. In 1989, the Soviet Union withdrew from Afghanistan, and the mujahideen with their light weapons triumphed over the Russian bear with all its heavy machinery in the farthest east. After that, Khattab got promoted from being the mujahid fighter to becoming a training commander. In 1994, he took charge of training new mujahideen in Khost province in Afghanistan.
No, hold on, wait a minute. Didn't you just say they had already won? So what's the need for new recruits? Shouldn't they just go back to their families?
Well, the US thought the same way, my friend. They told them, "Guys, the Soviet Union is collapsing, it's over now, pack it up and go home." The Mujahideen's answer was, "In your dreams, USA, we liberated this land, now we own it and we're not going anywhere, no matter what." The Americans said, "That's how you want it then? You'll get what's coming for you. From now on, you are no longer Mujahideen, you're officially labeled as evil terrorists." The Arab rulers, of course, submitted to the Americans, and just like that, the word Mujahideen disappeared to be replaced by terrorists in Arab newspapers.
Then what did Khattab do after, Abuda?
You mean Commander Khattab, my handsome brother. His name changed to Commander Khattab after the period you just heard about. Commander Khattab learned that the Soviet Union didn't just have a large share in Afghanistan, but it was also occupying other places like Tajikistan. Would the man stay silent after things calmed down in Afghanistan? No, he took a group of young men and went to fight the Russian army in Tajikistan up in the icy mountains. This happened in the same year, 1994. Do you know how many mujahideen he took with him? How many do you think?
Well, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 fighters, no?
He took only 8 individuals with him, uncle, so a total of 9 individuals going to fight a regular army up in the mountains under extreme weather conditions and temperatures dropping below zero, my dear brother. Based on both reason and logic, this is indeed either madness or suicide. But when you come down to the facts, or more precisely based on the sources under this video, you'll find a playlist containing very rare videos all gathered in one link showing to you what Commander Khattab did to the Russians there. Commander Khattab met Amir Shamil Basayev and his men, and if you know anything about Shamil Basayev, my dear viewers, you'd understand that this man alone has stories worth telling. Over there, they had the grill running for the Russian occupiers. So when he heard that Russia had entered Chechnya in 1995, Commander Khattab, who had already been through hell between Afghanistan and Tajikistan at just 26 years old, this commander did not stay idle, never. Have you ever heard the phrase, a man as strong as a nation? Have you ever heard that one man can make a group? When you take action with sincerity and determination, you can only imagine how much impact it might have. If Prophet Ibrahim did not call people for Hajj in the middle of an empty desert, would people have come to him? And until today, people are still answering the call and coming from every part of the world. And so Commander Khattab went to Chechnya, where he found his friend and companion Shamil, with whom he had recently parted ways in Tajikistan. Shamil welcomed him with his men and weapons, ready to enter into battle all over again against the same Russian occupiers. Oh, and by the way, Commander Khattab's right hand was injured in Tajikistan, and almost 70% of his hand was amputated and bandaged for the rest of his life because of a grenade explosion. Now I want you to imagine with me, a man going to fight the Russian bear in Chechnya with only one functional hand. Moreover, Commander Khattab learned Russian and Pashto, one of the languages spoken in Afghanistan, of course, in addition to English and Arabic. And within just 1 year, yes, only 1 year, Russia, the great power you see on the map, was forced to declare a ceasefire in the First Chechen War in 1996. Of course, Commander Khattab was not alone, nor did he neglect the factions that always had his back. A single man, just one man, I swear to Allah, can unite a nation and make it a strong fist against any aggressor. When Commander Khattab entered Chechnya, he came across an elderly woman in the freezing cold. He asked her, "Why do you want to fight the Russians, mother?" She replied, "We want the Russians to leave so that Islam can return to us." "So what can you offer to jihad and mujahideen?" he asked. She said, "Only this coat, my son. Take it and use it for the sake of Allah." She donated her coat in the freezing cold. This is a message to those who claim what is a necessity for the home cannot be given to the mosque, and to those who say fitna sleeps, cursed be the one who wakes him. The cursed ones are those who support a criminal and a killer and join their forces to him under the pretext that he has power in his hands, so they accept humiliation. The cursed ones are those who choose the easy path of staying idle and accuse those who chose the difficult path of serving a foreign agenda and receiving foreign sponsorship. They can't stand that someone else chose to be on the right side of history.
Why are you changing topics now? Let's stay with Commander Khattab.
I am not changing topics. It's just that one thing leads to another. Anyway, according to the Russian narrative, the number of soldiers and officers killed at their hands in Chechnya over 3 years was 3 times the number of Russians who died in the 10-year war in Afghanistan. Could you imagine that? I can't share footage in here to avoid trouble, but the link below might help shed the light. It could help you understand what it means to fight bravely and valiantly with honor. The images you will see will portray the phrase, "What is taken by force can only be reclaimed by force." You should read about the Shatoy operation on April 16, 1996, where with just 50 mujahideen, Commander Khattab wiped out an entire Russian army unit, destroying 50 heavy vehicles and eliminating 223 soldiers, including 26 officers, bringing them all down under the rubble. You can also read about the Grozny attack and the helicopter operation at the camp. And it doesn't stop there. Khattab took his men and infiltrated 100 kilometers deep into Russia. On December 22, 1997, he carried out an operation of extreme cunning, strategic planning and deception. In a meticulously planned operation, hundreds of Russian soldiers were killed, along with more than 300 heavy military vehicles destroyed. To the extent that Boris Yeltsin, the president of Russia at that time, officially dismissed high-ranking generals in the Russian army. And as a result, Commander Khattab became Russia's most wanted man in that period of time, my brother. The commander miraculously survived 2 assassination attempts by bombing until betrayal finally struck heavily against him. A letter was sent to him from his father in 2002. It was received by a man named Ibrahim Aluri from a place called Dagestan. Unfortunately, Ibrahim turned out to be a planted agent working for the Russians. He took the letter from its original source, which was meant for Khattab, and handed it over to the Russians. They opened the letter and coated the papers inside with a poisonous nerve agent that, upon contact with the skin, would be transferred into the body and kill its recipient instantly. They sealed the letter and returned it just as it was, giving it back to Ibrahim. Ibrahim then delivered it to Commander Khattab. Unfortunately, Khattab took the letter with his own hands, opened it, and touched the poisoned paper. From that moment, the symptoms of the poison began to appear. In the letter, his father was pleading with him, expressing his deep desire to see him one last time before he died. Little did he know that his letter would be the very trap that the enemy had failed to set for his son in battle. This reminds me of what Yahya Ayyash faced, almost the same story and the same scheme. On March 22nd, 2002, his soul departed at the very young age of 32 years. Everything you just heard was about a young man who was only 32 years old. Yet an entire country as big as Russia celebrated his death to the point where the official television broadcast was interrupted so that the Ministry of Defense himself could deliver the news of Khattab's passing. Yet, our nation and its youth unfortunately know nothing about him. Russia was unable to enter Chechnya until after his death, his and that of Basayev, may God have mercy on their souls. After them, they introduced a puppet named Kadyrov as a front to make it seem like Chechnya remained an autonomous Muslim state, while in reality it has been under Russian control ever since. Kadyrov, the criminal whose hands are drenched in the blood of Muslims, is often seen posing with celebrities to whitewash Russia's war crimes. He presents himself to Muslims as a Muslim ruler there, and due to our lack of awareness, we believe it. Forget this criminal and show this video to your children and let them know who Commander Khattab was. Also, show them his other videos linked below. In this video, he is asked why he left the Zionists in Palestine, which is in dire need of support, and came to fight the Russians in their own home here. He responded, "In our country, we have Arab Zionists who speak our language and dress like us. These Arabs stand between us and Palestine, and sometimes they even fight us back. What miserable people they are. They are neither of us nor us of them." He also said, "Whoever lives insignificantly will die insignificantly, and whoever lives greatly for his nation will die greatly." Be like the father of Khattab and instill in your children pride and resilience, and that they should lead their lives with dignity, and should they die, they should die with greatness. Allah bears witness, brave leader, that you indeed lived greatly and died greatly, and that you turned away from worldly attachments and comforts to fulfill your duty. We bear witness that you never hesitated nor faltered in defending the oppressed people here and there. We bear witness before Allah Almighty that you struck your enemy with great force and inflicted significant pain upon them. May Allah's mercy be upon both you and your parents, great leader. Commander Khattab. And that's it, dear brother. And Assalamu alaikum.